Hello, and welcome to Takes One to Write One. I'm Katherine Arcady, and I'm a writer. However, my characters are everything but. While research gives me information about their jobs and lifestyles, it doesn't give me the first-hand experience needed to write a well-rounded character. So, I created this podcast where I invite people on to talk about their jobs, their hobbies, or their beliefs, because it takes one to write one. At the end of today's episode, I'll know more about what it's like to play in a band. I hope you do too. Let's hang. I'd like to welcome Dave. He plays guitar and sings backup vocals around Metro Detroit with the bands Paper Covers Rock and Jackson and the Pool Sharks. He's played guitar since he was 14 and has played in 8 bands since then. Dave, thank you so much for sitting down to talk to me.
It's my pleasure. It's like normal.
Oh, yeah.
Between us, so.
Just a normal conversation. What did you say before this? It's a normal conversation.
With headphones on and microphones in front of us faces.
That's so exciting. I'm really excited to learn more. You've allowed me to pick your brain for so many things.
Yeah,
so I'm really looking forward to Good. And if it's not that, it's this gin and...
What did I call it?
Oh, I have the recording. But what is it?
The Razzle Whirl, something like that. I don't know. It's LaCroix and gin.
It is. That's what we're doing. It's delightful. I'm very interested to pull back the former footage to see what you originally called it.
Can't wait to hear back.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the drinks that you can make me from your liquor closet.
Just one bottle.
Just one bottle. Just a sole bottle. With the concept of this podcast, I was going through questions that I wanted to ask, and I figured, well, when I started writing and I came up with a bunch of character building things, I came up with a questionnaire. And I searched all of these character building questionnaires, 103 things you need to know about your character beforehand. And most of these questions that I'm going to ask you today are not of that, but the number one question that I saw most often that I thought was the most interesting to know about your character and what I'd like to know about you is what is in the fridge of a guy who plays in a cover band?
The refrigerator, right now.
What's in your fridge?
So right now I pretty much put lunch meat, cheese, water, milk. Honestly, I should preface and say that I live here by myself. So a lot of the stuff that I buy, a lot of the food that I buy is mostly for lunches and not really high maintenance, really. Sometimes dinner comes around and just give me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'm okay with that.
Can't mess with a classic.
And it's okay. And if I want anything special, I'll go out and whatever, just grab something, But yeah, I'm not high maintenance like that. So
I see.
But I typically, since I live here by myself, or I've been living by myself for a while, I try to find things that don't expire so soon. So it's kind of brought me out of, I'm not vegan by any means, but I do enjoy vegan cuisine. As you know, we've gone to a couple places downtown. But the thing about just buying milk, it's that's only going to last me a week or two. And I don't know if I'm either going to be into it that much or not. So I'll typically buy almond milk or something like that. Something that'll last a little longer. So I guess
so the stuff in your fridge is what fits your lifestyle right now.
Yeah. And being in a band and having band practice, I'm in 2 bands right now. So being in two bands and doing all that stuff, it's I don't know when I'm going to be home. Mm-hmm. So it's that's how it is.
It's insightful to know what's in your fridge. So 2 bands. Mm-hmm. How does one divide your time amongst one band, let alone 2? How is that for your schedule and working a full-time job?
Well, with the cover band when you introduced me with the 90s cover band, that was a lot of work right off the bat. I came into the band. The band was actually formed before I joined. And I remember I was living in Detroit at the time, and I was going to Wayne State, and I remember I drove from my place all the way up to this place in Chesterfield called Diesel Concert Lounge or something like that. And they were playing this gig, and I was like, what the hell? And I remember my buddy Dan, he was playing bass, and like I'm like, how did you learn how to play bass? Like, what is going on right now? And then it just so happened that one of my buddies in the band, he ended up quitting the band because he had a kid. And then I was just like, yeah, I'll join. But I was already playing in another band too at the time. I don't know how I was doing it. I mean, there was one semester I was taking like 16 credits. I was living in Detroit. I was driving to everybody else. I was touring. I was playing in this cover band. It was just like insane. I look back on that day and I'm like, I don't know how I did it. And so I guess I bring that up because now it's like I'm in two bands again. But the thing about the cover band is like we don't practice really at all that much anymore. So it's like we have our set. You've seen our set list. And it's like we don't really have to get together and like rehearse it. We just kind of listen to it, see what we have. We kind of maybe talk about it, talk about the set list, maybe songs we want to bring in, like, you know, depending on like what's the hot artist at the time, right? Let's say like, for example, like I think the last show you came out to see us, like, for example, the drummer of the Foo Fighters died. And then we were like, okay, we're going to be heavy on the Foo Fighters just to kind of like honor the situation. And then like after we played, my buddy Pat was just playing Foo Fighters. So I'm like, I'm done with the Foo Fighters tonight. I'm turning this off. But yeah, we got together and we talk about like what songs we kind of want to throw in and kind of how we want to like manipulate the set to kind of like, you know, favor whatever, you know, current situation we're doing. Now with my other band, Jackson the Pool Sharks, that's a band that takes up a lot more of my time. We try to practice like once a week. And we have 3 guitar players, you know, so a lot of people kind of, you know, not a lot of people, but some people might laugh at that, be like 3 guitar players. It's ridiculous. But the thing about it is, there's so many layers, to the songs. I mean, that people don't even really hear on the record. There's so many guitar harmonies and so many different riffs that are behind where it's like I can have fun just playing around. And you know, there's songs where like our other guitar player Nick, he doesn't even play guitar for the entire song. He's playing like a tambourine or a shaker, so it gives Danny and I like full full roam to kind of do what we want to do in that area. So I mean, it's super fun. Like we're writing a record right now, and you know, it's kind of been, we hit the ground running on it, and then we kind of took a step back because he moved into a new house, and like we're trying to get that all set up right now to, you know, when you start recording somewhere and then you start getting a tone where you want to be because that's the room that you're in, and then you get to another room, it's like, and you start recording again, who knows, you might have to start the process all over again. So that's kind of where we're at.
I see. So that it takes up a lot of your time. Do you have, are there pros and cons to the cover band in which you can, you know what the sounds are going to be like? It might be heavy on this band or whatever, but you just know how to roll with it. Or, you know, is there any sort of downside to having both things going on at the same time?
I love playing guitar, so to me, there's really like no downside. I could play in like 3 bands and not get paid at all. So, I mean, that's just like my passion. I just like playing. I just like being busy with my hands. But with the cover band, it's like I got to realize that like we're just entertainers. You know, we're just entertainers. Like, you know, people want to be entertained and they want to go out with their friends and do what they have to do, and that's great. And you know, we're happy to fit the fold in that current situation. But yeah, you know, we're just entertainers. We're playing other people's music. I mean, that's the realistic part. That's the realist part of it, the whole thing. It's like, and that's like why I can't just be in a cover band, because I don't get the satisfaction of like, expressing myself. Because we're playing other people's music. But at the same time, it's fun because honestly, there's never like one gig in the cover band. I don't think people even realize like every song I'm like playing guitar riffs all the time. Like, and I play something different every show. And it's just it keeps it interesting for me personally. I know that our singer can kind of get on me a little bit about it, but he likes it. I know he does. So we're good.
So when he gets on you about it, regardless of whether or not he likes it, what does he say? What's the get on about?
Well, you know, he'd just be like, you didn't play it exactly like how the song was written or how it recorded, you know. And the thing is like when it comes to certain songs, like I try to, you know, I stay in the pocket. I don't deviate too far out of the pocket. And if there's ever like a solo or a riff that's like a key solo, like for example, I know you like Cake and we do cover Short Skirt, Long Jacket.
Classic.
When it comes to the trumpet solo, you don't have a trumpet player. I could play trumpet. I don't own a trumpet. But the thing is I'm not going to deviate from that trumpet solo. I'm going to play that solo exactly the way that it is, because if I don't, it's not going to be the same. But there are certain solos like that I'll just play whatever.
Okay.
You know, riff around on it. Like we play, you know, it's kind of blasphemy that the only Weezer song that we regularly play is Beverly Hills. To me, I mean, to me, that's kind of blasphemy. But honestly, like that's the most requested song we get. We know like the entire Blue album. I think we had talked about this. But the thing is most people want to hear Beverly Hills, but the people that I hang out with would be like, Beverly Hills, why are you guys playing that song? It's like, well, because if we don't play it, someone's going to come up to us and ask us to play it. Do I like that song? No. There's literally like half of our set I don't like. And there's plenty of songs that I would love to play because I like those songs. But it's kind of nice that we don't, because I don't get burnt out on them. I like, you know, like for me, it's like we play a lot of Third Eye Blind and like I can't go back and like listen to that anymore because we know the ins and outs of how it works and how it plays. So, you know, and doing the backup vocals and, you know, getting real high on them. That solo at the end of the song, it's like I can just fiddle around with that and play whatever I want. It doesn't have to be like the I can play that part, but then after that it's like just play whatever I want to play, and we can extend it as far as we want to extend it, as far as like extending the song and keeping the jam going. But yeah, that's a long-winded question or long-winded answer to your question.
That's the sort of stuff I like. That's my bread and butter. You mentioned playing to the audience. What is it like as the entertainer aspect of playing in the cover band? What is it like playing to the audience in that way?
Well, it's like not taking, just having fun about it. Just having your mindset, just be like, you know what? I'm here to have fun. I want to play guitar. This is what I like doing. When it comes down to it, it's like, what would I rather be doing? Like if I have an opportunity to play guitar on a Saturday night and you know, make some money, I'm not driven by the money aspect. Obviously we already talked about that, but it's like, I'm playing guitar for people, you know, that's, I don't, you know, that's just pretty much what that is. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Yeah,
I want to continue on.
So I guess like playing, you said playing for the audience. So it's like, you know, I read the audience, I make eye contact, we do those things. And we just make sure everyone's having a good time and making sure everyone's involved. But you don't really want to assert yourself because of the fact that, like, I mean, have you ever gone out to a bar and you're like, hey, I'm going out to this bar with my friends, or I got a date. And you get out to this bar and you're like hanging out with your date or your friends, and all of a sudden this fucking band shows up and they're like, hey, like they just set up their stuff and they're blaring their music at you, and you're like, this totally killed the fucking vibe. Can I swear on this? I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I was.
I feel like we should. I feel like we should be able to.
Freedom of speech.
It wasn't. Our target demographic is at least
7 to 15 years old. They got to learn some point.
They got to learn some way. At least in an educational way. This will be done. Yeah, you know. At the very least, I'll just like censor it. So.
Okay, so I won't swear if you're gonna go ahead and censor it, but.
No. Fuck it. Swear.
All right. Well, shit. Okay. But yeah, so you don't want to overimpose yourself. You kind of want to read the room a lot more, because you're stepping in. Like, it's one thing if I go play a show at Jackson Pool Sharks and we're playing in a venue that is, people are coming out to see a show with 3 or 4 bands on the set list, and they know they're going to go there and experience a live show, and they're paying for it, or it's a free show, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different experience when like you're going to Sugar Bush Tavern and you're about to get a chicken quesadilla and drink a Modelo, and then this band's playing Beverly Hills, and you're like, I'm just trying to dip my quesadilla into the sour cream, but this band won't shut up.
I see.
So we kind of have to read the room a little bit more. So
I understand. So continuing off of what you said towards the audience and towards performing, what makes a great night? Like if every performance could be like XYZ, what is the recipe for a great performance?
Just getting the audience involved. Like I said, we're entertainers. It's not about us. Like that's the thing some people might get wrong. It's like, well, you know, it is kind of what's the word I'm thinking of? You know, some people can like interpret it like, oh, I'm watching you play and you're playing guitar, and oh, he plays guitar and he's doing stuff. But really it's about the audience. It's not about us. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like the musician never thinks about it like that. You know, we're working. Like, you know, we're working. And so I guess a good show would be, you know, good audience participation. Just not in participation like everyone's dancing and stuff, but just like, hey, we know people are coming up to us and saying, hey, you guys sound good. You guys are doing whatever you got to do. You know, the people who come up to me are usually the people who just want to talk gear. That's it. People who come up to me, they just want to talk about my guitar amp, my guitar, my pedal. What pedals are you using? What are you doing? And that's pretty much what I attract are males that want to talk about gear, which is okay with me. Sure. That's great. I want to hear what they're playing. Mm-hmm. I want to know what they're playing. So right now, you know, it's kind of crazy. You know, people be like, oh, what distortion are you using? Or what distortion pedal are you using? Or what? It's like, I'm literally just driving my clean tone. That's all I'm doing. I have the tone of my amp, and I'm just boosting my clean tone with another clean tone boost. That's all I'm doing.
What's a clean tone?
So really all I'm doing is just, I have a pedal called an exotic EP booster, and it's like this little micro pedal. And I say micro because it's not
Is that the limited edition one?
It's not limited edition. Oh, wait. You're thinking of the Jimi Hendrix wah wah pedal that I have that I was going to sell my buddy, but then I realized no, it was actually kind of bigger. But you are thinking of the little pedal that I have. You're thinking of the right pedal, but that's not limited edition.
Okay. Please continue. I just got way excited. So you have that little one for a clean tone.
Yeah, so pretty much my amp volume. So for any gearheads out here that, you know, would want to know, pretty much all I do is I have I use a Vox AC30 Custom Classic 2. The Custom Classic 2 comes with Celestion Greenback speakers on it. Ooh. The Celestion Greenback speakers, all the Celestion Greenback speakers do, or the tone of the speakers as compared to a regular Vox AC30 tube amp, is the Celestion Greenbacks give you more of a warmer tone. It's very warm. It's like sleeping with a nice silk blanket. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
No, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Very silky.
Yeah.
You like the feel.
Because my guitar, so I'm pushing my mids and my treble. I'm not using any bass off my amp. I'm literally pushing my mids and my treble. So it's super trebly. It's like, you know, it's super weird. That's not the sound of Gibbs, obviously, but it's super high. And then, so the only bass resonance I'm getting is from my semi-hollow body guitar. Mm-hmm. And then the Celestion Greenback speakers give it a warmer tone. So, you know, when I am driving my amp, I'm still getting like a warm kind of feedback. It's very inviting, and it's very calming. And, you know, that's kind of what I go for. It's actually very jazzy. It's like a very jazzy tone. And then I do have an overdrive that I use. And that's just an Ibanez TS808. But really all my overdrive is doing is just saturating my clean tone. So, it's just kind of, yeah, it's just kind of like, it's saturating it, but it's like compressing it at the same time, if that makes any sense. It's not very difficult. It's really just super simple. And I just kind of just let my guitar and playing like do the work. And then, the nice thing about driving my clean tone is that I don't have to, there are times where like, I can play lighter. And then, when I'm coming into like a chorus, I can strum a little harder, strum a little harder, strum a little harder, strum a little. And now I'm like playing harder. I'm strumming, I'm picking my strings harder. And my amp sounds louder. It sounds bigger. It sounds more anthemic. Um, while I'm playing in Sugar Bush Tavern. So, I got to keep in mind what my volume levels are. And there are times where I'm turning my amp backwards and I'm facing the front of my amp at my face and miking my amp. And you said, it's like, what constitutes of a good show? And, I said audience participation. If I'm aiming my amp away from me towards the tables that are eating chicken quesadillas and burgers or whatever, they're going to leave or they're going to want to move their table. So like I'll turn my amp 180 degrees, face it towards me, mic the amp so it's coming out of the PA speakers, and then we can dial it in how we want. So
interesting. With this clean tone that you talk about, do you bring that into every show? Is that like the standard in which you set what you got going on, or is it more reading the room and saying, okay, well, I'll do something that isn't so jazzy or it has a little less treble or something to that degree?
That's pretty much what I do.
Okay.
That's just what my standard is. And in Jackson the Polish Rock is funny because I have a pedal board that I use for the cover band, and I'll just rip my EP booster off of my pedal board, this little mini thing. I'll rip it off there, put it in my bag, and that's the only pedal I use for Jackson.
Okay.
I'm just boosting my clean tone on my amp. That's it. I'm not doing anything else. And it's funny because the other guitar player in my band, I would bring, he's not very like tone oriented, and that's fine. I really like the work that they've done, before I've joined the band. But I would bring my pedal board over, my whole pedal board, and he would be like, "Oh, you got this pedal board?" Like, "Oh yeah," kind of look at me. He had like, his little pedals hanging out, and I'd be like, and then eventually I would just come to shows, and I remember we played this one show in Hamtramck at Planet Ant.
Ooh.
That's what it was called, Planet Ant. And I remember I reach my bag and I pull this one pedal out, and I'm like, "Hey man, look it," and I put it on the ground, and he looks at me, he starts laughing. He can't stop laughing because I'm just like, yeah, this is what it's come to. I don't need the whole pedal board, and I don't want to carry it, so
it's a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
You said tone oriented. What does it mean to be tone oriented?
Well, it's like it's like having an idea of expression, how you feel, and just like dialing in the guitar tone and whatever melody or whatever rhythm or whatever you're doing, and it matches how you feel. I don't know. I like to think of myself as a little bit of like an under the cover songwriter. Like I write a lot of songs. I write a lot of lyrics. I write a lot of parts, but I never really like imagine myself singing it. Because I always think of somebody else singing it. And, I've sent some ideas to like, the bands that I've been in, and, we've worked with those ideas. Almost every band I've been in, like anyone can attest, like be like, Dave writes these songs, and like, holy shit, like, wow, they're great. And the whole point is too, is like, I like writing the song and then bringing it to a band and then seeing what it morphs into. I want to see what it turns into. I want everybody to have input and like be a team about it. And that gives me confidence, because I think at the bare bones level, I don't have, like the true confidence. Like it almost feels like a coming out party for me. Like, oh, like what if I ever did like, I was a front man for a band. It's like, I feel like, oh, I'm like just doing this coming out thing. Like I've never done it before. And I've always been in bands with like good singers, and like that I always viewed that were like good singers personally. Like every band that I've been in, I feel like I've been lucky to have good singers. And I don't think I'm a bad singer. I think I have a distinct voice. But I just never imagined myself like being the singer. Like sometimes I'll be like, hey, I would love a female vocalist to be on this, just because of the way the mix is and how high a female's vocals, the range is. And like how, if you think of like music as like the wall of sound, right? Like, you know, you have the wall here, and then, you know, it's like you'll have like your drums, like maybe like a sixth the way up the wall. And like, where does that cover in the wall of sound you're listening to? And then you have your bass, and like, where does that fit in? And when I think about like the high end of the sound, I want to be up here. Well, when I say up here, I'm visualizing to you, but I want to be above the bass. I want to cut because I'm playing guitar solos.
Okay.
I want to be able to cut through when I need to. And it just makes it easier. It makes it simpler.
A word from our sponsor. I'm the sponsor, and I'm sponsoring you. I know how difficult it is to write a book or write fucking anything, but I am here to sponsor you and tell you that I believe you. You can totally do it. You can set your mind to it, and you can accomplish it all. So, believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. Thanks. So back from our sponsor, we talked about what a good night is for you. What's a bad night?
Honestly, I don't have many bad nights. But I will say, as far as cover band goes, I've definitely gotten into some heated arguments with my band on stage. Not on stage, well, after the gig. Because there are certain songs where I have to down tune my guitar and they don't. And they'll just go into the next song and I'll be like, dude, I have to tune my guitar. And it just pisses me off. It really makes me mad. And like, you know what? The first 10 times, it's okay. I'm a laid back guy. I just like to play guitar. It's fine. But yeah, that's the one thing. That's a bad show. It has nothing to do with the audience. I'm just there to entertain
It's
you.
your interaction
with the people that know me and know where I'm at. Yeah.
How do you down tune?
Well, we play half step down, so it's really just standard tuning, and then a half step down from that, so we're just E flat. And then when I say down tune, I mean there's songs like Jimmy Eat World, The Middle, like Foo Fighters, Everlong.
I see.
Those kind of songs that are in drop D. So since we're half step down, I'll tune my low string to a C sharp.
Okay.
Instead of a D. So a D would be standard, and then a C sharp would be half step down from that.
All right. So if I was in the audience watching you down tune, what would that look like? Is it just kind of you don't see it, or is it what's the clampy thing that you put on the neck?
The clamper thing?
Yeah. Is
that's
that involved
a
in down tuning?
No, well it could be. I mean, that's called a capo.
Capo.
So
how do you spell it?
CAPO.
CAPO.
Yeah, and so what a capo does, I love capos, honestly. They're fun. A capo you can put anywhere on the neck of the guitar, like any fret that you want, and raise the key. And I say raise the key because you're like you have like your nut, like you have your first fret, and then you have your nut where that's put on. So pretty much like your capo is like your new nut.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like your new beginning. Yeah. But when it comes to tuning, like sometimes I have a pedal on my board that I can tune with.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
It's a chromatic
so
tuner.
it's not a drawn out process to do this.
It should not be, because we have to do it so fast sometimes. See, I'm just being like over dramatic, and I'm not being over dramatic just because I have to like down tune. I'm being over dramatic because it's like these people know how I feel about it, and it's
I
like,
see.
and I say these people like as if I don't know them, but they're my best friends in my bandmates. These fucking people. But yes, like they're my bandmates. I love them. Like, you know, honestly, you know, and like being in a band is like being in a relationship with like multiple people. Like most like what I've learned in being in bands and stuff like that, and going on tour and being in a van and living in a van with people, male or female, like whatever bands they were, it's like nothing will teach you more about being understanding compromise than that. Nothing will teach you more than that.
Oh.
And I think that's kind of why, like personally for me, like I don't mind. It's like when you're laying in the van and you're just like laying on the floor and you have this particular spot, you lay on the floor and like, that's my spot. And then you get in the van and that person's laying in your spot and you're like, you're just like, you know what? Like you could have that spot.
Because I'm sure it matters a lot at that point.
You get your, everybody like kind of like, whittles out their spot in the van. Where you're going to be.
Unassigned, assigned.
And you kind of whittle it out and you kind of figure, it's like unassigned, but you assign it.
I see.
And no one's really, you know, you just kind of take what you can get. Everyone's taking what they can get because you're in a van. And it's kind of like, you know, but certain things happen, you know?
When you say van, is this like Grand Caravan, wife and kids van? Is it like an Astro? Is it one of those long white marshmallow looking vans? What are you traveling?
It's like what kind of model van? I mean, it's definitely not a caravan. It's definitely not any van you described.
Oh.
But it's definitely like a van. I don't know. It's a long van. It's like an Astro. I guess if I had to like, my grandpa drove an Astro, and we drove to Kentucky in the Astro. But it's kind of like one of those.
How long were these tours?
Well, I did a couple 2-week tours. I did like almost a month tour.
Wow.
And you realize, like, you know, even still, like, you know, I played in this band, and still to this day, like being on tour and living with these people, my friends, that none of these people are actually in the current bands that I'm in. They'll always be my friends. They'll always be my friends. We understand each other on a level where no matter what, it's like, it doesn't matter what happens. It's like, I know you and you know me, and there's no hiding that. There's no BS. There's no bullshit. There's none of that. It's like when you live with somebody in a van, you can't hide anything. And, you know, there's compromises because you learn a lot about everybody. And you realize, like, hey, like, is this a good person or not? I mean, there are bands out there right now that are selling out venues like St. Andrews that, you know, like my buddy Mark plays in a band called Tiger's Jaw, and they can sell out State Theater, and they're touring all over the world globally. There's not a moment in my mind, and he would agree with this, that like the reason why he's playing in the band Tiger's Jaw is because he's a cool ass dude on tour and he's chill touring. You could be the greatest guitar player ever and be the most creative guitar player ever, but if you can't vibe and chill in a van and tour and do those things, you're not going to hack it. And that's what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's cool that, like, you know, you can fill that void and fill that spot, but if you're, you know, if you're not chill in the van, then, you know, you're not going to get the green card to go, the green light. I mean, green card. I don't know, green light.
Green light.
Depends on where you're traveling, I guess, but where you're going. So, yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's all about, you know, it's hard, that's hard to find. It's hard to find, and that's an avenue of musicianship that I haven't ventured down in quite a long time. I've, you know, I've kind of taken on my own career and what I'm doing, and I I find enjoyment in that, and I kind of stick to the avenue in which I go to. That's it.
So it sounds like you go through a range of emotions, either, while you're on tour doing this compromising as you speak of. Do you feel the high adrenaline, during the show? Do you feel the low sort of post show? What are the emotions that you've had to come to terms with when playing as you do?
Well, I will say, personally, I feel like here and there, I kind of struggle with anxiety, and I don't mean to get on a soapbox and talk about that, because most people do, and it's not anything out of the ordinary. But the one thing I will say when I talk about that is that touring, because I'm in a different spot every day or every night, every day, even if I've been there before, I can't think of the future and actually have a pretense or a thought in my mind of how I think it should go, because I'm not actually adjusted to routine. Yeah, there's a routine of touring and there's a routine of traveling, but it's not like I'm going to wake up the next morning and go to work and expect I'm going to see the same people and be like, oh man, this person, or this, it's like, or I wake up in my bed and I'm like, oh, my fucking neighbor, or it's like, it's just new people all the time. And I love people. And I think that like gets the best version of me out of me. I don't know if that answers the question.
Well, it
I
does.
apologize.
So with the lack of, what to expect, it's good. I imagine it's wearing on you. Is that one of the more draining things about being involved as you are, or is it something where it's worth it, where you don't care, it's just part of the thing?
When I'm on tour and we're doing the thing, it's honestly, that's like the happiest I've been. There's really like no there's nothing in the world that can like replace that for me. And you could say there's like wasted time and lost time because of the avenue that I've taken to do what I'm doing and the bands that I'm playing in, because I'm not touring, and that's what I'm looking for. But I guess in that avenue, the one thing that is really kind of interesting is being away for that long and coming back and then having to like reacquaint myself with everything around me. Old friends I haven't seen in a month, feels like I haven't seen them in months, year. People change quite quickly, especially when people change quite quickly all the time. But when you're absent from that and you come back to try to like it almost feels like you're rekindling it. But that person's like, but your friend is always, it's almost like they're always willing to like accept where you're at, because they'll be like, how did it go? That's awesome that you did that. And they're asking you questions and they're doing all this stuff. And like, you just come back from being in a different place every single day, and now you get back home and you're just laying in your bed and you're like, every day, and you're like, holy shit, like it's like you go so fast and then you stop and then like you're totally just not going fast anymore, and your friends at that point can relate with you because now they get a piece of you and they can say, oh, how did it go? How's it going? And the whole time you're trying to adjust and you appreciate their company because obviously you're friends. Yeah, but the whole time you're personally trying to adjust, and that's part of touring that I didn't enjoy. That as far as the low of touring or things I didn't enjoy about touring, is coming back and having to kind of like reestablish my mindset. That was it. And that's kind of like, I guess at the base level, that's kind of like what deterred me away from from doing that again, in a weird way. I don't know like if I just kind of, wanted to just kind of, huddle back to like my comfort zone and just kind of make a career out of something else, by still doing what I like to do. But there's really like no money in being a musician these days. I mean, there really isn't, you know. There's opportunities. There's a lot of opportunities to make money. Um, but I'm not the kind of musician that like would write music for like other people. And if I was, I would share it with you. I would be more open with sharing it with people that I know and people who are close to me. But I'm not that kind of guy. I like to keep things to myself and, you know, express it. And, you know, maybe one day, you know, I'll show you stuff that I've written. And I mean, I have, but, you know, maybe I'll show you more stuff. But, you know, you know, that's where I'm at. You know, like I remember when we met, I was like, you know, one of my goals is to like write an EP and do all this stuff. And I haven't made it there yet.
Yeah.
I haven't made it there yet because I've actually like filled another avenue of like playing in another band since then. And I still want to do that. Like there's still songs like on my phone, on my camera roll, I have all these recorded songs and I'm like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And I, you know, I can't wait to like get into my new place and be able to set it up and do what I want to do. And not be, you know, constricted or confined to, you know, my neighbors here. But yeah, so that's just kind of where I'm at. I kind of do it for myself. I do it for the therapeutic aspect. I don't, you know, I'm not writing for other people. And if it is for other people, it's like, hey, singer of Jackson the Pool Sharks, what do you think of this?
Okay.
Would you want to play it?
That was
because you're going to be singing it.
Yeah, because you mentioned earlier that you show them sort of stuff. What's the difference between what you show them and what you're not ready to you just want to keep it to yourself? What differentiates those?
So usually the stuff I show them is like I'll make a recording and I literally will just say garble. It'll just be garble into the microphone, but the melody will be there, and there'll be words. I'm saying words, but they don't mean anything. But it's kind of interesting because I take on this like weird thing where it's like I'll say garble and just say random words and like it's kind of like in the moment, like whatever comes out of my mouth. But I get the point across where I won't forget the melody and I won't forget the song. Then when I listen back to it, like I'll have like a poem or lyrics written out, and then however like I hear back, I'll like go back to my notebook, and I'll change the words, thinking about how I heard it in the recording. So like I'll be like, oh, this would actually sound really good right here, and actually this makes more sense right here, and like I don't know why the hell I said that right there. I'll change it right there. But what I mean, what I'm trying to say is like what they're getting from me is just a recording of me playing my acoustic guitar, and I'm just spewing a bunch of garble.
I see. What does the garble sound like?
It sounds
gibberish?
It sounds like words. It's just words. Like I'm saying actually real words. But there's meaning, but it's not like nothing ever really like ties itself together.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know, because the melody is kind of based on the syllables and the words and what I'm trying to get across. So it doesn't matter.
So it's more so the inflection.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's more so about the melody that's in my head. And there are times where, you know, even like, you know, we've hung out or whatever. It's like I'll be walking through the woods and I'll just be like the whole time like, I got a drum thing in my head. I got the bass. I got the guitar. I got this. And I can't wait to get home and play this right now. I don't say it, but like I'm just like in my head the whole time. And be like, what are you thinking about? And I'll just be like, oh, I was thinking about this song. Or I'll be drumming on my chest, like banging on my chest like a orangutan or something that's hungry for something. And you'll be like, oh, I don't know. That's my drum beat.
I see. Well, it seems to me that you surround yourself with people who are also creatives. Like, you know, I'm writing, I'll just check out at a certain point and be like, hold on, I got an idea. I need to text this to myself. And you're like, yeah, no problem. No worries. So, the same to you. Do you find yourself becoming friends with people that understand kind of the social culture of playing in a band, that when you're away, it will take you some time to process once you're back from a tour? They'll understand. Do you kind of have to be with friends with people that are also in bands or in bands adjacent?
You know, it's an interesting question because, you know, just recently, you know, I was thinking like all of my friends I center myself around are music related. That's it. Everybody. There are people that I was friends in high school that I'm still friends with today. And it's all because music still ties us together. Like my best friend, Steve, It's because of music. Like, that's why we still hang out and see each other on a weekly basis, is because we play music together. Even like my cover band, like I wouldn't see anybody in my cover band if I didn't play music together with them. Everything is tied together like by music. Everything is. And it's kind of funny, kind of an off note. When I was in high school, there were like other bands that were kind of coming up, and it was funny because I was playing in a band and they'd be like, oh, that was like our arch rival and all this stuff. And it was like, at the end of the day, like, we just love to play music. Like, while everybody was out partying on a weekend and getting drunk and, hanging out with these girls, and we were nerds sitting in a basement playing instruments. And they're like, how'd you get so good at guitars? Because I wasn't that guy. We weren't those people. We all got together on like Saturday nights and weekends and played music together. And that's really what it was. And it wasn't even like a thing. Like, we didn't feel like we ever had to compromise with a lifestyle, what everybody else was doing. That's just what we love to do. And it shows today. None of those people are playing in bands or playing guitar anymore, or playing drums anymore. We're all still doing that. We all still love to do it. Now, the high school band that I was in back in the day, am I still the same guitar player as I am today as I was then? No, not at all. But that's
what's different.
Well, the band that I played in high school and like post high school, like we were more pop punk.
Okay.
Brandenburg was the name. What? Have you heard of us?
No, you've talked about it, so I'm interested in hearing more.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, we just kind of got together and we just played what we want. Sometimes I listen back to like our songs and I'm like, holy hell, like how did some of the stuff is like so creative because I just didn't, like my buddy Steve and I just like, all we want to do is just like have our own little riff on top of everything, but we like work so well together and compromise with each other to like have these cool guitar parts that kind of run side by side with each other. And, that was really fun for us. And, when we started jamming, I didn't play guitar. My first guitar I ever owned was a bass guitar. And, cause he had a guitar and I was like, well, I need to get the bass. And my mom took me to the local guitar music shop and she was like, do you even know what a bass sounds like? And I was like, yeah. And I took it home and I was like, no, I don't know what this sounds like. I don't know what a bass sounds. Cause I like, I kind of like incorporated like the kick drum of a drum set to like the bass. Cause it was like the bassiest thing like the drum set had on it. And then, when you listen to fucking bands like Metallica and stuff, it's like, yeah, it's like that's kind of what they do. Any bass player in Metallica is kind of overrated. I'll probably get shot for that, maybe in certain people, but it is true. It is true. There's certain metal bands where like, they're literally just pounding on a bass string that's literally in junction with the kick drum. And that's great. That's great. I love it. When I say overrated, it doesn't mean that it's bad.
Oh.
It doesn't mean that it's bad.
Okay.
It just means that, you in the wall of sound, once again, you kind of like tied yourself into that wall of sound in a way where it's like, okay, my bass is going to be here. And most bass players kind of stick with the kick drum. They kind of like fool around and dance around where, the drums are going, and that's how it's supposed to be. And, I don't know, there's a lot of like 80s metal bands, like early 90s metal bands. Like, the bass really wasn't like, on the forefront. I mean, anybody, like you hear like, like early 90s, like Pantera, like Vulgar Display of Power, those kind of records. You can't hear the bass. I mean, like Injustice for All by Metallica. I'm not a big Metallica fan, but I recognize, that they're a good band as far as like laying the groundwork, or continuing to lay the groundwork to, where we are today and making it a mainstream accessible genre. Like, who would have thought, that a band like that would be like a mainstream successful genre? I mean, maybe back in the day, but then you like fast forward to like now and you think about like bands like Linkin Park, right? Who would have thought like a band like Linkin Park would have been a mainstream band on the radio?
Why do you say? Why is it that you say that?
Um, I think people will digest anything that's force fed to them as far as like mainstream goes. And I think MTV has a big I think MTV has had a big influence on pop culture.
Sure.
I mean, you go back to the early 90s. I mean, MTV gave Nirvana a platform and gave grunge music a platform for the masses. I mean, if it wasn't really for MTV and, honing in on the look and style of Nirvana at the time in the early 90s when Nevermind came out, and bands like Soundgarden and, anybody who would know, like, you think of a band like the Melvins. Like, why wasn't the Melvins a popular band? How come bands like Nirvana and all those other bands like will look up to the Melvins and be like, "Oh, you inspired us to make this music," but the Melvins never got popular? It's because the style of what they look like just didn't match what MTV wanted. And it's interesting because bands like Nirvana like understood that, but they weren't ever denying of the platform that they were given. Even from Nevermind and Utero. And then you can, even you fast forward to today, or even like more modern times where you have like Jersey Shore. It's like MTV has influenced a culture of people.
Oh, I see.
In pop culture. I mean, you kind of reversed it a little bit back before Jersey Shore, and you have TRL, and you had the whole like rap rock thing, and you had Carson Daly on there looking all young and fresh and his clean shaven face, and who'd you have on there? MTV was promoting or kind of pushing for like boy band versus rap rock. You had your NSYNC Backstreet Boys on one aisle, and then you had your Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park, on the other aisle. And then you had all these like strays in between, like Eagle Eye Cherry, like Save Tonight, and like, all this other stuff. But like when you think about that, and then you think about VH1, you think about like, okay, who gravitated pop-up video? Like who gravitated towards that was like bands like Matchbox 20 and bands like Jewel, or artists like Jewel and Faith Hill, and these more contemporary rock artists like Goo Goo Dolls were more like a VH1 type artist, where like MTV was more of like a boy band / rap rock thing. And we even watched a documentary on Woodstock 99. That was TRL Prime, right on HBO Max. Remember you talked about that, or we watched it and we watched that whole thing, and then we had a discussion after it. And
as we do.
And it's interesting, like it's like, well, first of all, we realized we came a long way as human species. Mm-hmm. And the fact that like just seeing the whole crowd throwing plastic everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a sight to behold when you see a documentary like that.
That would not happen now. Kind of not to the degree that it did before, but you're right. Yeah.
Just a different time. And it was just a more volatile time. There wasn't, people just, there weren't standards to hold yourself to as much as they are today. Like the community didn't hold you to something as much as they did today.
The community. Yeah. Okay. So what's this community like? Because you're talking to me about all of these facts and all of these opinions that you've learned over this time, and I don't mean to look at you with such squinted eyebrows.
I mean, I was 9 years old when Woodstock 99 happened. I could barely, I do a lot of things.
Have you acquired this knowledge through all of this playing that you've done? Have you acquired this knowledge specifically because Paper Covers Rock is a 90s band and you kind of have to know the history? Like, where do you pull your knowledge from when you're able to spit all of this to me right now?
So when I was a kid, I wasn't sheltered. Like my parents did not shelter me. I've told you this, I think, before. I wasn't sheltered. I could literally listen to whatever I wanted. I'm a middle child. My oldest brother is 7 years older than me. He was born in 1982. He's just on the cusp of a millennial, just like me. Um, and my older brother was very compromising and very fair. He was an awesome older brother. I couldn't ask for a better older brother in my life growing up. Um, and he was into bands like artists like Marilyn Manson and stuff, and like we used to watch Beavis and Butthead and get real stupid, and just do whatever we had to do to be entertained. And when I was 9 years old, like I just remember, or when I was around that age, I remember going to Meyer with my mother and being like, "Hey, Mom, I want this CD." And I was aware of like Jane's Addiction and like their first record, Nothing Shocking. On the cover, it's like an image of this female, and her boobs are hanging out and her hair's on fire, and it's a mirrored image of that. And my mom was like, "Yeah, sure, if you want to listen to that, that's totally cool." And like I just wasn't sheltered, so
Okay.
no one ever really told me no. So some people, like, they lose their mind when they go to college and then like they're partying. I never lost my mind, but I lost maybe I lost my mind recently. But but I will say that, like, when I was a kid and I didn't have any sort of my road was paved with what interested me.
I see.
And my parents were super cool and understood the artistic value of that whole thing. And they weren't surprised when I picked up a guitar. They really weren't. I mean, they didn't really support the avenue I took until we started seeing success, but they weren't surprised that I gravitated towards that.
Yeah, what's that like to tell your parents, like, hey, I'm in a band? Is it the stereotypical, like, okay, sweetie, like, you do your best? Or did they fight it? What was it like to tell your parents?
Uh, well, they just kind of found out on their own.
Mm.
I told them. I mean, they knew that, okay, so I guess, I know I just said two different things that are totally polar opposites. But I told them, and we were doing our thing, and like I just was like, "Hey, I'm playing with Steve and all this stuff, and I'm playing with my friends," and they were like, "Oh, whatever, and they really weren't like supportive of the situation until they realized, like, we started seeing success, and then they started being kind of like overbearing and weird. Like, I had a computer in my bedroom, and like they would like go in my bedroom and like take rough recordings from the studio off my computer.
What?
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
why?
Because they just wanted it. Like, they were just really weird about stuff, and they weren't upfront with me, and and I understand why they weren't upfront with me about it, because if they were upfront with me about it, I wouldn't share it with them. Because I just wasn't, there was like this barrier with me with shows, because after a while we started meeting a lot of people like outside of our friend group, and those people I would only see at shows. And so it became like a thing where it was like, hey, I smoke weed with these people and I don't want my parents to be here, and I'm drinking and I'm 16 and holy shit, I don't want my parents to be here. And
Sure.
it's one of those things where it's like, I don't want my parents to see me doing this stuff and I'm hanging out with these people I don't want them to see me hanging out with. Even though they never like sheltered me, I still had this defense mechanism about it.
Okay.
Because I was shy about expressing myself, and my parents like didn't support that as much as they were in it for themselves and being like, that's my son playing, oh my god, that's my son. And the whole time I'm like shy, because like I don't mind playing for people at a bonfire, I don't mind playing for people, I'm not shy like that. But when it's like people like loved ones and like family that know me in a different limelight, and it gets kind of weird, it's harder for me to accept the fact that I'm expressing myself in a different way.
That's really interesting, because I will share my writing with internet strangers, but the second my mom is like, so what are you reading? Can I read like a chapter or two? I'm like, no, it's not ready. It's not ready.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same idea.
This has been the first part of a 2-part series for playing in a band. I hope you learned more. I know I did. Thanks for listening and stay tuned for part 2. Like and subscribe if you'd like more writing resources. Until then, I'm Katherine Arcady, and remember, it takes one to write one.